Hello, I'm Colleen Gallagher, CEO at Onward and Upward, and you're listening to the Association Insights podcast, where each week we interview association leaders from across the country to hear how they're trying new things, taking big risks, and delivering value for their members. We'll explore the realities of what it means to work in and with associations and bring you the insights and inspiration you need to advance your career and make big changes at your association. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Association Insights podcast. I'm your host, Colleen Gallagher, and we have a really special conversation ahead of us today. I'm excited to welcome two really smart women in the association world from the College of American Pathologists. Julie McDowell is the Director of Strategic Communications and Digital Content, where she leads cross-functional teams to advance the organization's digital strategy and strengthen member engagement. With more than 20 years of experience in comms and marketing, she has a proven track record of driving initiatives that deliver measurable results. I've also had the pleasure of getting to know Julie through my work with Washington Women in PR and know that you're going to get so many great insights from her today. Plus, she'll be joined by one of the high performers on her team, Becca Battisfore, a senior content strategist for the CAP, who is a digital and content marketer with a passion for mission-driven organizations. I'm so excited to have you both here today. Julie and Becca, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you, Colleen. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. So let's start with a quick overview for our listeners who might not be familiar. Can you give us a quick introduction to the College of American Pathologists, who you serve, what your team oversees?
The College of American Pathologists, or the CAP, is a leading organization of board-certified pathologists serving in the United States. Our more than 18,000 members are physicians who specialize in diagnosing disease. So when you get a laboratory test, a blood test, or a biopsy, pathologists are the physicians that oversee and diagnose that disease. They're really at the heart of patient care, even though they don't always have a direct interaction with patients. In addition to being a membership organization for pathologists, the CAP also plays a critical role in helping laboratories around the world deliver accurate test results for patients. So when a patient gets a blood test, a biopsy, or other lab work, they can trust that the results are reliable and that they can trust them. I lead our digital content team, which is part of our broader marketing and strategic communications unit, or we're a team of 5, and we focus specifically on our digital channels, so email, website content, and social media. We serve primarily 2 audiences, our customers as well as our members. Our priority is really to ensure that our digital content and messaging is relevant and engaging and aligned across all our platforms, whether we're communicating with members or customers. And we really work closely with all aspects and divisions in our organization, whether it's advocacy or education or membership, as well as our business team, to ensure that our digital content supports both our mission and our business goals.
Yeah, that's quite the amount of work to oversee. I mean, I think some people think, oh, wow, a team of 5 for digital, it's amazing. But then you look, you have 18,000 members, you have all of these different areas. I'm constantly amazed at how associations of all sizes are able to churn out the work they do at the quality that they do. It's really impressive. I'd like to dig a little deeper into, Becca, your role and your focus when it comes to content. I know you have this digital marketing background, a really strong analytics mindset. So what does that day-to-day look like? That's something I think that a lot of folks that are in associations trying to figure out, what do we do around content and how do we bring a better strategy, want to actually hear what that every day looks like and how you're supporting the strategy and actually measuring things.
Yeah. So my role here has evolved over the last 3 years. So I've had a hand in, podcast production and promotion, website content strategy, our YouTube channel strategy, and a variety of other digital marketing projects. And so, but I would say my day typically has been the same overall when you look at it, because it really starts with checking in with my content manager, who really runs our strategy and has done the work of setting up our team for success. And then once Julie came in, like really overseeing our communication strategy as a whole. And so really checking in with her and seeing, okay, what is coming up for our website? What do we need? Who do we need to meet with? And so doing a quick check-in with her on that. And then next, I like to start my day by myself, checking in on any metrics that I'm tracking, having, as you said, an analytics mindset. I'm very curious about, if we had a specific campaign go out or, a new video on our YouTube channel, I'm looking to see how it did. And so I'll say when I first started in digital marketing, it was really exciting to hit send on an email and watch the opens and clicks come through, as geeky as that might sound. And I say that excitement never really has gone away. So I'm always just looking for trends or outliers and just seeing if there's anything I need to flag.
I love that. And I love that you're looking at it through the lens of, do we use this to change something rather than just having data for the sake of having data?
Yes, exactly.
Amazing. So, Julie, you've been able to see the CAP evolve quite a bit over the years. So, what are some of the biggest shifts you've seen in terms of how the association is approaching content, comms, and digital engagement?
Yeah, so I've been at the CAP for almost 16 years. And I would say two key things really stand out to me in terms of how our content strategy has evolved. I think first is really our approach to social media. So I launched our social media presence well over 10 years ago now. And really, there was a lot of skepticism among staff as well as members in terms of, is social media worth our time? What are we really getting out of it? What's the purpose? But it's been fascinating, over the years, that our social channels we've really been able to leverage them as a way for our members to connect with each other and actually form a community with each other and amongst each other. And so that's really been neat to see. And we have always focused, and we continue to focus on sharing content and providing them access to content that supports their work as physicians, whether it's clinical guidelines, clinical updates, regulatory news. How can we help them do their jobs better? And over time, we've really found that we also have a large customer audience that relies on our updates for compliance news and other updates news. So our strategy really continues to be about meeting both our members and customers where they are, where they want to go, and just helping them do their jobs better. And I would say the second notable evolution has really been our focus on audience first campaign strategy. And that's something that Becca and our other colleague, Venus Brady, have really, really emphasized and really led in our organization. It's starting before we start with tactics, before we even really, start planning budget. We get our team together and we think about what is our goal, and how are we meeting the needs of our customers or even our members. And we also keep in mind, what is the experience of our audience going to be throughout that campaign. And I'll give you an example. For instance, we have a fall annual meeting, and we typically start promotion of that annual meeting at the beginning of the year, January, February. And of course, we love to have a long runway. We like to have a lot of time. But, as Becca and Venus have often emphasized to us, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of months that we're going to be promoting the same event to the same audience. So we really have to be intentional, and we really have to be careful about the cadence and the volume and the quality of the content. So I think that that's just starting with the sort of really keeping at the foremost of our minds the audience experience and the audience needs. I think those are two real things that have evolved over the years and have become more of a priority to the organization. And of course, Becca's excellence and expertise in analytics have also helped us focus on tactics that frankly aren't working. and aren't moving the needle and aren't moving us forward. And I think that's been really valuable as resources become more limited, as budgets are limited. Let's not waste time on tactics that just don't work.
Yeah, that's huge. I want to call out a couple things there because you said some really good information in there for our listeners. The first part made me laugh a little bit because I remember those days of like, should we do social media? Is this going to be
Yeah.
good? And while I always believe a healthy dose of skepticism is important, I do think trying and testing and then determining whether or not it's good are so key. And as we have new technologies emerging, you never want to be that person that's just saying, no, let's not try. There you might try and say, okay, this isn't for us, but you do have to try. And so I love you bringing that up. And then the audience first. Wow, that's such a simple but im- important thing that I think does get overlooked when we're thinking about our content strategy. A lot of times it's just, okay, the membership team wants this, the advocacy team wants this, and you start checking these boxes and you forget that as an association, we are driven by our members. And so the fact that you are always prioritizing that, I think is so smart. I wanted to ask one kind of follow up there about your customers versus your members and thinking about that. That's a little different than a lot of associations. So tell me more about how these two audiences you have and how you're thinking about them.
Yeah, so there is some intersection, I will say, between the audiences. Some of our customers are also members, and vice versa. But our customers are typically laboratory staff, laboratory directors, laboratorians, and particularly in the United States, we provide products that help them comply with federal regulations. So the information that we're providing helps them comply and helps them and meets that need. So we want to be a partner for them. We want to provide them information that's useful, that's actionable, and that again helps them do their jobs better. With members, we pivot a little bit. We have a little bit of a different focus because we are a membership organization. So we're meeting different members who have different needs. And that's also important when we're targeting different events or different initiatives. A pathologist at an academic medical center will have a different need and be interested in different books, different events, different education courses than, say, a pathologist at a private practice. So that's another opportunity. That's when we really get into email segmentation. When we get into do we looking at some of our different social channels. Do we have a lot of pathologists on Facebook, for instance? Doesn't appear to be. That's more of our customer base there. So we hold back from content on Facebook, for example, that doesn't resonate because our audience really isn't there. So I would say that we are different and that we have quite a sizable business, but it's a balance. It's a
Yeah.
balance, and we are a large. I mean, in terms of an association, our staff is, I think, over 600. So we do
Wow.
have a large staff, and again, that's what's so important, though, for our team to really partner with all aspects.
Yeah, there's a lot of alignment that has to happen for sure. So let's dig deeper into that content strategy. You've both emphasized this audience segmentation that we talked about. One of the things I like to talk about is alignment to KPIs. And I do think that's something a lot of associations struggle with. So, what does building an effective content strategy really look like in your world? And where do you even start?
Yeah, I think KPIs are a great foundation, a great starting point to partner with other staff and other colleagues because it aligns all parties to a common mission and a common goal and a common goal. We may have a different idea about how to get there, about what's most important, but a KPI I think is just a great level set. And it's also a great opportunity to really build and strengthen relationships that, just grow over time. I'll give you an example of a KPI related initiative that we're working on now. We're working with with our advocacy team on a KPI related to growing member participation in legislative action alerts. So this is when members can click on a link and easily send an email to their member of Congress expressing the impact of a pending legislation or a regulatory challenge, how it's impacting them. So we've been working with the advocacy staff this year to develop a social media strategy to promote these alerts, particularly on LinkedIn, where our advocacy content has really gone from strength to strength in terms of engagement in recent years. But we're also looking to see if we can use some other tactics. For instance, Google Ads or LinkedIn campaign or other paid ads to promote these alerts, provided that this kind of content is in compliance with LinkedIn's terms of use. But we're sort of looking at, while traditionally this team has really focused on email to drive these action alerts, we are trying to see if some other tactics might work. Becca, I don't know if you want to sort of share some of the tactics that you have used or some of the strategies you have used.
Yeah. I have a couple of examples. One was, and this was from maybe a year or two ago when we were doing some promotion for our leadership courses, and we really had to dive. It was a group of us from all different departments in the organization, and really trying to figure out how do we do this with a very limited budget of reaching out to these people who are likely to be pushed into a leadership position before they're ready, for example. And so this was a new area for me. I'd only been there maybe a year and a half. And I just kept asking these questions of like, so who is this person? Who is it? And I'm like, what is the, average age or, just give me an ideal, like, the persona or whatever. And it turned out to be women aged 35 to 45 or so, and it was like, oh, okay, millennial women, let's go to Instagram, things like that, where had they not told me that, we would have been blasting our campaign on every single social channel, hoping for something to stick, versus just really, putting our budget where we know it could be the most effective. So I think that was an early example of needing to ask the right questions. And then the other thing, which is a more recent example, is making sure that the format of your content fits the channel, that is appropriate for the channel, not only in, what the content is, but, it took a little bit of convincing to say, hey, when we are doing video, we should, and we're posting on social, we need to have vertical video. TikTok and Instagram Reels and, all of these other social platforms have moved to a vertical first format. And we need to join that bandwagon, it not only because it looks better, and that's what everyone's used to in their in terms of behavior. If you're used to scrolling up now, it's just what the algorithm is going to show. And so that was something that really, again, took some pushing, took some questions of like, how do we get this going, and let's just try it. And it definitely made a difference, I'll say. And so something to keep in mind then is when we're looking in the early stages of a campaign is to keep that in mind with, the videographers or graphic designers, is that, hey, have a vertical first mindset when capturing stuff. So yeah, I'd say those are the two examples that come to mind.
That's awesome. I love the thoughtfulness. I love the being strategic and not blasting everything everywhere, because that is a thing associations are often digged for. So really great. And then, we talked a little bit about serving these two audiences with a little bit of overlap and having to make smart decisions about how you approach that. Julie, I'd love to hear a little bit more on avoiding that one size fits all trap, and what you're thinking on that front as you guys navigate that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We've been focusing on not about reaching everybody. It's really about reaching the right people with precision and purpose. And it was interesting because I recently heard uh, about the digital marketing leader Seth Godin's concept of the minimum viable audience, which I know is not a new concept, but it was new to me. And it really resonated with me because his point is you really want to target the smallest group who will benefit from and care about your message. And that's really been a guiding principle for us that we've been really trying to push and promote in our internally, especially on email, because email fatigue is real. And it really is real. And we're often countering this, perspective from our colleagues that more email will translate to more registrations or more purchases. And we have the we have the data that says that is absolutely not the case. So we are fortunate enough that we use Marketo as our email system, and there's just a lot of options to do targeting, to do segmentation. But again, it goes back to really honing in on the audience that will benefit from a certain book or a certain education event or another webinar. It's really kind of culling our database and developing those email targeting lists. It's also about looking outside of email, as I mentioned before, looking at LinkedIn campaigns. Something that we're piloting right now is looking at that we've had some issues on our email with members who can't access our email because of cybersecurity reasons at their institution, which is not uncommon and is probably going to become more common. So we can actually, using some LinkedIn tools and capabilities, we can actually feed those emails into LinkedIn and to try to match up those emails with profiles on LinkedIn and then try a targeted campaign via LinkedIn. So that's something else that we're looking at. We're also looking at doing more geofencing. So for event registrations, we have been doing some paid ads using geofencing for other industry events where our target audience may also be attending. We have some preliminary and high level metrics that have shown strong engagement. So that's something that we're definitely looking into more in the future.
I love all of that. I love trying these new things, and the email is such a challenge now. And whew, yeah, that email fatigue is no joke. I went through quite a purge of stuff coming into my inbox earlier this year because it was getting just too hard to keep up with. So I feel that. Back to that end, you mentioned you're coming in at the beginning of every day and looking at metrics. What are you looking at? What specifically are you tracking, and how are you thinking about the different segmentation pieces based on that, and what you're doing from that data?
Yeah. So I'll start first before going into the specific metrics is that I start with my guiding principle. And this is a quote I heard about 10 years ago. So it's not something I made up or anything, but it stuck with me. And that quote is, the plural of anecdote is not data. And so when I think about that, I recall when I first started using it, and that was when someone was giving me stories of like, well, this is, this worked because of that. This worked. And I'm like, but that's one person. And those stories are still really important, but it's not, we can't use that as data. It's not data. Several anecdotes do not indicate some kind of pattern or behavior. And so we might have a feeling that something's working or isn't working. We may have examples in mind. Recency bias is real. It's something that's an outlier, stands out. But we don't know, and we can't jump to conclusions until we really look into the data. And so I like to treat it as a logic puzzle. To me, again, geek. I like to geek out on numbers. And so I'm always digging in of, why would this have happened? And how can we figure out how to replicate this or not? So in terms of metrics, I look as far down the marketing funnel as I can. And I don't just look at one metric to draw conclusions, because the interpretation of that metric there could be multiple interpretations. And so, for example, when it comes to email, I don't really look at open rates. They don't interest me anymore and haven't in a few years. At this point, I consider it a vanity metric that doesn't provide enough context. And without getting technical, it's just not considered reliable as it once was. Not to say I don't look at it in context with everything else, it just doesn't indicate anything helpful on its own. And so what I look at are click-through rates, and then also then connecting those click-through rates. We look at Marketo to see the click-through rate, but then I'm going to Google Analytics to connect, okay, where were they? Where did they go? How long were they there? Did they bounce? And just digging deeper of, okay, how can we figure out what resonated and what didn't? When I think about, our YouTube channel, we're really trying to revitalize that. And so I'm looking beyond just the number of video views. That's obviously important. It's how the more views, the more it gets fed to more people. But I want to see how people came to these videos. Was it our own promotion on social? Was it the title or thumbnail that was optimized, that the algorithm picked it up? Like, I'm really curious on that. And so always, again, also A/B testing things to see if one thing's going to have more of an impact on the other. And then back to my point on, not looking at just one metric in isolation. Let's say you have a landing page and you're looking at how much time is spent on the page. Is 30 seconds a good average time? Is 5 minutes? Well, that depends on other factors you're not considering. And so I look to see, if 30 seconds could mean that the page was optimized and the person found exactly what they were looking for. Or was it too cluttered and they just bounced right off, within the 30 seconds? Versus 5 minutes could mean, they found so much content. It was really useful, or they were stuck looking, so it's also including that time on page and then something like a bounce rate in terms of how many people are bouncing off. And then also, a conversion rate. Did we get the registration that we wanted? Did we get the sales that we were hoping for? Did the person accomplish what they set out to do when they landed on this page? So those are the things that I typically look at.
I love that. And what I keep hearing from both of you is the intentionality behind everything you're doing when it comes to content. One other thing I keep hearing and I'm pulling away from this is that the success seems to have a lot to do with some good, strong internal collaboration to make this all happen. So, how are you structuring that? What's helped you build buy in and how's that working?
I would say something that really helped early on. I mean, when I joined 3 years ago, I was on a team that was fairly new. And a lot of it revolved around just doing some road shows, and telling people who you were and what you were here to do and help people with. And so we as we finalized processes, whether that was for our podcast strategy or whatnot, we were telling people so that they weren't confused as to what was happening and to any changes. And in addition, we were also utilizing the data we had. And so that, I think, was also a game changer of, look, this is new, change is scary, but here's what the data is saying. This isn't a bias that I have. I'm new, I'm looking at data, and this is what it's saying. And I think that way you can build relationships with people because you're all coming together for the same goal. While each team has their own goal, that's not to say that that's not happening. You mentioned earlier, marketing has their thing, advocacy has their thing, membership has their, everyone's got things they have to accomplish. But at the end of the day, we have one same goal of, meeting our members and our customers. And so I like to make sure that we all remind each other that we have the same end goal. So yeah, I would say that.
That's fantastic and a really important part of being able to have a successful content strategy. So I love hearing that and love the collaboration. I know both of you have been involved in podcasting for quite some time. So I'd like to know how your experience with that and with Capcast influenced how you are really approaching storytelling, education, member engagement, all of that across your various digital platforms.
Yeah, so I launched our Capcast podcast nearly a decade ago, and it was sort of the early days of podcasting. I was a team of one, and so frankly, I needed content. I needed content that could work across multiple channels, and podcasting was such a great practical solution. I mean, our members are incredibly busy. So asking them to write a blog or oftentimes even recording a video just wasn't realistic, but the audio interviews were so efficient for them and for me. I could get an interview done in, 15, 20 minutes and then have authentic content that then I could again leverage across many channels. But I come from a journalism background, so I naturally engaged I naturally gravitated towards more of a Q&A format. But then when Becca took over the podcasting a few years ago, she really elevated it into the storytelling format that frankly is the most engaging and the most resonant with our members and customers. And it's really rooted in authentic storytelling. So I'm going to pass it on to her because she's really grown it and developed it.
Well, I'll say like kudos to Julie for getting us set up with such a great structure 10 years ago, not only on podcasting, but social. And so she really, as a team of one, did an incredible amount of work, getting us started. So I think that was great then coming into it. And we had, years of episodes. And I came in and I was like, let's change it all. It worked. Those episodes worked. They were great. But I came in wanting to do just something completely different. And so what Julie was doing with, those shorter, Q&A conversations, I was looking at, let's find members who are willing to talk for a long time and let's see what we get. And so I totally understand. It is harder to get members because they are doctors. They have busy lives. It's harder to get them. But those that are willing to share their stories and their insights, we get some really great content out of it. A couple that come to mind, I did an episode with just one member. Typically, I like to have a few members on, but this one was a very personal story of this member. This pathologist was had a difficult physical health condition. All of a sudden, it came out of nowhere, and it was just she was dealing with immense pain, and it was very hard to then step back as a doctor and say, look, I got to take care of my health first. And so it was just a really incredible story to hear, how she overcame that and how she developed some really incredible strategies to keep going despite these physical limitations. And so it was a nice wellness journey episode that I think doesn't often get talked about. Doctors also need to take care of their health while they take care of ours. And then another one was for fun, really fun for me, is that we had a few forensic pathologists on, and I had them watch an episode of a TV show and tell me what was real, what wasn't. And that was just, an incredible, like a dream of mine to just get to talk to them and ask them, so what about this episode? Tell me. So just really fun getting to see the funnier side of our members too. So I like to just get to know them. And when I see them in person, like at the annual meeting, it's fun to be like, oh yeah, remember that time we did that episode.
I love the creativity. That is just amazing and so good for storytelling. So that's really cool. If we could leave our listeners with some final advice, what would you tell association leaders who really do want to be more strategic with their content, but they're feeling stuck in the day-to-day execution? What's one place where they could start tomorrow?
I would say just step back and look at some of your high level metrics and really be honest about what's working and what's not working in terms of driving engagement, registrations, or whatever your goal is. I think you will uncover that there's some things that might not be working, and that's normal. I mean, that's just, and give yourself permission to stop doing them, because if they're not moving the needle, they're not really allowing you to focus your time and your team's energy on the tactics that are truly making an impact. I think it makes the most sense for your audience as well as for your staff. I mean, staff, when you're working on a team and it's the strategy is not really working, it can be really tough on staff morale. So I think that focusing on what works, cutting through the noise, I think the payoffs are just immense, and that your team will feel more energized working on campaigns that will actually make a difference.
Yeah, I want to repeat something here for our audience because this just struck such a chord with me. And you said give yourself permission to stop doing them. And that's around if things aren't working. Wow, like that's something we just need to think about because how often do we keep doing it because we've built this whole infrastructure and this was going to be fantastic and we have to do it. You don't.
You don't. You don't. And I would say too, even for leaders, VPs, C-suite above, listen to your staff who are telling you, this isn't just working, and really support them in making those calls. Because I think the payoff is really immense down the road.
Yeah. Wow. This has been awesome. So insightful. Such great intel for our listeners. Before I let you go, though, we like to wrap up all of our podcasts with a bit of a just for fun rapid fire section. So we'll kick off with Becca then Julie on this first question. So have you gotten to get away to anywhere fun lately?
Yeah, so back in August, I know it's October, almost November, but back in August, my sister and I did a quick weekend trip to New Orleans for a friend's birthday, and I've never been, and it was really fun, even though it was August.
I love it. How about you, Julie?
Yes, I'm based in Washington, D.C., and in August, during the heat of DC, we got to go away just locally to Deep Creek, Maryland. I don't know if your listeners are familiar, but it was just wonderful. It was great weather, relaxing, and it was like 2.5 hours away. So it was a great vacation. It was a great getaway.
That sounds glorious and a good time to be escaping the weather here for sure. Awesome. Well, Julie, let's start with you this time. What podcasts would you recommend for our listeners that you love listening to?
So I would say two. One, unfortunately, is stopped production, but that's Women at Work, which is a podcast from Harvard Business Review. It's
So
one of
good.
my it's one of my favorites, but you can still listen to, I think they have over 150 archived episodes. It's just a great episode focused on developing women leaders, growing female influence in the workplace. But yes, it's just a great podcast. And another podcast that I love to listen to, it's called Keep It. It's by Crooked Media. It keeps me somewhat up to date on current popular culture because I'm often far behind.
I'm going to have to check that one out too. Awesome. Becca, how about you?
Yeah, I would say this is more on the entertainment side than educational, but I find it educational. And that is the movie buff podcast called Blank Check. And it is about movies, about directors who make movies that essentially give them a blank check to make whatever passion project they want after. So they'll cover a director's like full, series of projects. And some of them are movies I've seen, some of them I've never seen or heard of. And it's just really interesting. There'll be like 3-hour-long episodes of just deep diving into the movie, into the director. And I just love seeing the different connections between all the different art projects. So to me, I find that educational, but it can be fun too.
That's so fun. I have not heard of that one, so I will add that to my list for sure. Fantastic. Okay, Becca, what's one place in the US you've never been but are dying to go?
Boston. I was going to say DC if you had asked me a few years ago, but I have been to DC once, and now it's Boston. And
Okay.
I have a history degree, so there's a lot of American history to see.
Yes, for sure. How about you, Julie?
I have always wanted to go to Acadia National Park in Maine. I love Maine. I love Maine in the summer, but I've never been that far north into that particular national park. So it's on my list.
That's funny. You're not alone. We've had several guests give that one. It's a popular spot. So very, very nice there. Okay, last one. Julie, finish this sentence for me. When you see me looking at my phone, it probably means that I'm
playing Pips on the New York Times game app. That's my newest obsession.
I love it. That's great. Becca, how about you?
I would say if I'm not doing, playing low-word games like that, I would say I'm on YouTube, either watching a video or looking up videos that I'll be watching on my TV later. I'm addicted.
I love it. Awesome. Well, Julie, Becca, again, thank you so much. This has been such a great episode, and I know our listeners will take so much away from it.
Thank you so much, Colleen. This has been great. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. It's been fun.
That's a wrap for today's episode. The Association Insights Podcast, previously known as the Association 100 Podcast, is a production of Onward and Upward Marketing and Communications, where our mission is to make associations and nonprofits the go-to source in their industries through earned media and thought leadership. This podcast is an extension of our newsletter, a bi-monthly collection of best practices, top trends, helpful ideas, and smart strategies delivered straight to your inbox. Have you undertaken a big change at your association? Or do you have some words of wisdom from the trenches of association life? We want to hear from you, and so do our listeners. Drop us a note at info@onwardupward.com. That's info@onwardupward.com. Be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share with your friends and colleagues. We're available anywhere podcasts are found. Come back next week for more association insights and inspiration. Thanks for tuning in.